Let's continue. Again, this is Harold Waters, OSU Extension Field Specialist for Agronomic Systems, talking about the program we've used for the fertilizer applicator certification training. So why the focus on agriculture? I should point out that why we focus on agriculture, that is our role, our job. You as producers, retailers, and me as an agronomist working with crop production here in Ohio. And there are other parties, of course, out there also working on their concerns, whether it be the cities, golf course managers, homeowners, everybody else. So let's talk first about that, I guess, our subject watershed. That's the Maumee River watershed. And that's an easy one. Again, we have long-term water quality data from there, so we can do some good calculation, take a good picture of it. So why are we looking at it? A large number of agriculture acres, much like Western Ohio. There's small amounts of average contributions per acre. So while we have large acres, we have very, very small amounts per acre, and so it tends to build up. We will use some back of the envelope calculations. So these are rough estimates, I will admit, and we'll look at non-point source phosphorus loading. And we're going to take a look at some edge of field averages across those study sites we talked about earlier. We'll look at some year one information. And then we'll also hopefully give you an answer on why the focus is on agriculture. So quickly, a Lake Erie map, just showing at the bottom of the slide here, the depth of that western basin, and that shallowness is some of the contribution to the problem, as well as the fact that we are loading those nutrients in there. As you get in deeper into the lake, that central basin where we have some of the hypoxia problems, we do have some deeper water there, and so we get some settling of that low oxygen water. So just quickly here, and I'll key in on that western basin there, but sources of phosphorus loading here for Lake Erie, non-point, point, upper lakes, atmospheric, need to count that as well. But key in on that one in the red circle there, that western basin non-point source of phosphorus, 4,395 tons of phosphorus coming in there. And across those non-point sources in general, about 61% of the total phosphorus going into Lake Erie is coming from those non-point sources headed into that western basin. From our edge of field studies, this is from year one work, we have an approximate soluble phosphorus loss per acre of about 1.7 pounds, so something a little bit less than 2 pounds. So again, not a very large loss per acre, but a lot of acres. So let's talk about the acres. Ohio is the largest portion of the western Lake Erie Basin, the watershed it feeds into the Maumee. So we're at 3.8 million acres, and then Indiana and Michigan, of course, are involved as well, for about a total of 6 million acres in that watershed. Percentage of agriculture across that watershed is about 72%, so that's why there's a focus on agriculture, a lot of acres. So about 4.3 million acres in that watershed. And then we'll take that 1.7 average phosphorus loss and multiply that times our 4.3 million acres, and we come up with about 3,636 US tons of that phosphorus loss. And that is a very significant contribution of what the estimate was from the Ohio Phosphorus Task Force, that there was about 4,395 tons going into that watershed, into that western Lake Erie Basin. So a significant portion there is coming from agriculture. We do have phosphorus reduction goals for Lake Erie. 40% is the goal, was set to reduce the amount of phosphorus going into the central part of the Lake Erie, but really the whole Lake Erie, to reduce that hypoxic zone. And we'd like to also see a 40% reduction in spring total and soluble reactive phosphorus to better manage that cyanobacteria biomass, to reduce the chance that it's going to produce concentrations of toxins. For the Gulf of Mexico going to the south, we can't forget the rest of Ohio. There is a goal there as well. Past goal has been a 45% reduction needed in both nitrogen and phosphorus in the Gulf of Mexico. Current goals from a February of 2015 report is that we're looking at a 20% reduction in nutrient loads by 2025. Pointing out here that this is a long-term problem and a long-term opportunity to meet those goals. And then just briefly here on why we're talking about both nitrogen and phosphorus. It has been a tradition in the past, we're going to talk about limiting or nutrient excess in water. We tend to think of nitrogen as a limiting nutrient in marine waters and phosphorus as a limiting nutrient in fresh waters. And so we tended to work on those kind of as a single nutrient concern. But some recent work shows that it really is both nitrogen and phosphorus that are a contribution in both marine and fresh waters. And we really need to work on both nitrogen and phosphorus when we talk about how do we reduce the problem, particularly even with cyanobacteria. Is there an economic value to these nutrients we lose, whether it be down the Maumee or other? So here again is some data. Again, we have long-term information from the Maumee there at Waterville. About $16–17 million of nutrient loss on an annual basis going into Lake Erie. So it's an economic concern as well. And going down to Mississippi, this is some rough calculations I've made related to the amount of losses going down to Mexico. So I put some numbers on it for nitrogen and phosphorus. So my rough estimate is about $2 billion worth of nitrogen on an annual loss going down the Mississippi, maybe $360 million of P2O5. And then that sediment loss, we don't talk about it enough, but as we lose soil, that's really, we're giving away our future. So that loss is priceless. So in summary, we do have the concerns for nutrient loss here in Ohio from sediment. Nitrogen and phosphorus are all a concern. Hypoxia is a problem in the Gulf of Mexico, certainly, but also in the central basin of Lake Erie. Harmful algal blooms can produce a toxin, which is a human health risk. Our edge of field studies and river monitoring give us a better direction on practices and impacts. And water quality data is intense in the Lake Erie area, but we do have sampling and data from other areas across the state showing that we have similar nutrient problems, not just Lake Erie. And then we ask the question, can we improve economics of nitrogen and phosphorus use in production? And that hopefully will assist us in reducing those water quality problems as well.